What happens when historical authoritarian tactics collide with the pillars of a modern democratic state? This is a high-stakes stress test of our foundational systems. To see how this collision happens, we have to look at effective polarization. In this state, disagreements on policy give way to deep, identity-based animosity and distrust toward anyone outside one's political group. This animosity deepens when working-class voters feel economically abandoned. Over decades, as wealth concentrated and global capitalism shifted good jobs away, many felt ignored by the managerial elites running the country's institutions. When you combine this severe division with a widespread distrust of institutions, a massive political vacuum opens up. Citizens stop looking for traditional bureaucratic fixes and start looking for a powerful figure who promises to take control. Donald Trump built his political brand to fill that exact void. His approach fits a specific profile: the dominant leader. This style is highly transactional, relying on sheer force of will, rapid decision-making, and demanding absolute loyalty from subordinates. While critics point out its flaws, this directive style can be effective at cutting through traditional bureaucratic paralysis to secure specific legislative milestones. This graphic shows outcomes of the 2018 First Step Act. The recidivism rate for released individuals dropped to 12.4%, compared to the 43% general rate. On the second page, the document lists operational prison reforms, including retroactive good time credits that reduce sentences for thousands. This administrative efficiency requires a trade-off. A leader who operates by demanding total compliance often bypasses the slow, deliberate democratic norms designed to keep executive power in check. History shows a clear pattern when leaders seek unchecked power. Long before they deploy military force or ban elections, they systematically hollow out civil society, the network of voluntary groups, unions, and independent media that connect citizens to their government. Leaders like Viktor Orban in Hungary consolidated control by packing universities with loyalists and forcing opposition newspapers to close. The goal is to defund and discredit any group that teaches people to think for themselves. But history also provides the countermeasure. In 1980s Poland, it was the Solidarity movement, a labor union backed by teachers and intellectuals, that successfully fractured Soviet control, proving that organized civil society is a powerful check on absolute rule. Autocrats know this. They understand that to build a fully compliant population, they must first eliminate the public spaces where negotiation, compromise, and dissent naturally occur. Stripping away that civic muscle, the everyday habits of self-government, is always step one in the authoritarian playbook. In the United States, we have seen this historical playbook adapted for the 21st century. This modern approach often starts with executive overreach. By issuing unilateral executive orders, a president can bypass congressional oversight entirely, taking direct control over policies like the indefinite halting of the U.S. refugee admissions program. This exertion of power extends into physical public spaces. During moments of civil unrest, the administration deployed the National Guard to suppress local peaceful protests without the request or consent of state governors. Federal agents were tactically positioned against citizens holding opposing political identities. The objective was to project authority and assert dominance over those challenging the administration's narrative. This dynamic highlights a total breakdown in mutual toleration. Mutual toleration is the democratic norm, where competing political parties recognize each other as legitimate rivals rather than existential threats to the nation. When mutual toleration vanishes, a dominant leader can justify using the power of the state as a weapon against their own citizens. Institutional guardrails go away, and democratic backsliding accelerates. Unlike vulnerable systems of the past that collapsed under similar pressure, the American democratic immune system activated defensive mechanisms to resist this executive overreach. The first line of defense materialized in the judicial system. Federal and city courts stepped in to provide a necessary constitutional balancing weight against the executive branch. In cities like Portland, local courts successfully struck down moves by the administration, legally blocking the federal government from deploying the National Guard into their states. An independent judiciary provides a critical roadblock. It stalls the momentum of an authoritarian trajectory, buying the public the time it needs to organize. But courts and political institutions cannot maintain a democracy on their own. They require the active mobilization of everyday citizens to hold those institutions accountable. A functioning republic breathes through local, face-to-face problem solving. When people gather at school board meetings or block clubs, they build bridging social capital, relationships that connect individuals across deep political divides. Labor unions serve as another vital organ of civil society. Because they train members in negotiation and collective action, they inherently resist top-down autocratic control. And when these citizens take to the streets in peaceful protest, they physically model the democratic norms they are fighting to protect, directly defying attempts at authoritarian suppression. Modern democracy survives this kind of systemic pressure for one reason. When leaders attempt to tear the social fabric apart, it is the citizens who patiently thread it back together.